Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the One Talk podcast. You're here with your host, Ryan McCarthy. And today we are joined by Charlie Owen. Charlie helps coaches master content to grow thousands of followers each month. And in today's episode, we touch on Charlie's entrepreneurial journey, as also his personal journey, mindset, and relationships, stepping into uncertainty and uncomfort, moving to new environments, not knowing people, and so much more. There's so much depth that we go into, and I can't wait for you all to dive in, check it out. And also on the One Talk, each month we feature a GoFundMe to bring awareness and to hopefully bring more awareness to the One Talk audience, and also potentially raise funds, or if you are listening to this, just to share the GoFundMe. But October's GoFundMe is for Carol Walker to help her with a lymphedema surgery, which will be absolutely life-changing. Carol's in need of this surgery, and it will change her life because she has fluids built up in her leg. She's in the wheelchair. She can't walk. She struggles to move. This surgery would absolutely change her life. So that's October's featured GoFundMe. It will be in the link of this podcast, so please check it out. If you can't donate anything, maybe just share it, or maybe just have a look into it. It would mean so much. In other news, if you could please leave this podcast a rating, it means so much in terms of helping this podcast grow, reaching a larger audience. So if you're on Spotify, Apple, leave a rating and follow. If you're on YouTube, if you could subscribe or like, it would mean the world. But without further ado, let's welcome Charlie.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all. The marathon continue. Victory lap tonight, though. Victory lap tonight.
Welcome to the One Talk podcast with Ryan McCarthy.
The marathon continues. That's what you would say.
Welcome to the One Talk podcast, Charlie Owen. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, bro. Great to finally have this chat.
Yeah, it's great to finally link up and connect after all these years of kind of knowing each other and us floating around the same circle. So it's really cool now we're actually having the time to sit down, have a conversation, and getting to dig deep into some things.
Yeah, it's cool that everyone floats in the same circles. Hey, like once you get into this space, everyone becomes so accessible, and you're only one connection away from pretty much anyone that's doing cool stuff on the coast here. So yeah, the networking effect on the coast is amazing.
Yeah, that's why I love like Queensland as well, because like we got Sunshine Coast, we got Brisbane, we got Gold Coast. It's like three really good spots filled with great people doing amazing things who are driven, and somehow we all just interconnect with each other and support each other to make this massive impact in the world. Like I feel like Queensland's doing some big things at the moment.
Yeah, bro. Even I was speaking to a mate earlier, and it's like it's hard to fear judgment when everyone around you supports you so much. Like I put out a post last night, and it was around a different business idea I've got and what direction I'm heading in, and just like everyone like flooding my DMs and comments with so much love and support. It's like it's hard to not do what you want to do in life when you've got that sort of support around you.
Yeah, 100%. And then you don't even realize you have the support until you overcome those fears and beliefs and start taking the action. Then you start realizing, wait, shit, I was actually just caught in my head for no reason. And these people around me actually want to support me.
Yeah, bro. It's the biggest thing, like fear of judgment for the longest time. It's even like trying to make content online. There's about a 6 months period where I wanted to make content online, but I didn't because I was so scared about what everyone else thought about it. But then once I posted a piece of content, no one actually gave a shit. It was just me judging myself. So it's like, wow, I could have saved so much time.
That's awesome, bro, because this actually segues into the first part of the show I want to get into. So I'm going to share my screen because I've got something to show you. So let me know when you can see it.
Yeah.
All right. So I've got your first ever video on Instagram for the people listening who can't see it, or they have the visual or not watching on YouTube.
Wow.
So the caption of this video is, I feel like this video is aimed at future me. Hopefully something to look back on and thank myself for making the decision to start and to get out of my own comfort zone. So now I want to play this video, brother, and I'd love to get your thoughts after it.
Wow.
Quick walk in nature, toothpaste on my top. Perfect. I'm going to be making more videos on this page, I think, just because I'm learning so much at the minute, whether it be through books, podcasts, or just life realizations growing up. So if I approach something with the intention of passing it on, to teaching it afterwards. I feel like I retain that knowledge a lot more, so that's a pro for me. And if you take any value from it, then all the power to you. And the second reason, honestly, is because it scares the shit out of me. And you got to do things in life that scare you the most. That's your body telling you that's where growth is. And your body doesn't want to, your brain doesn't want to grow because it's uncomfortable. It wants to be in its comfort zone. So I jumped out of an airplane recently. And if I can do that, I'm sure I can make a few videos for Instagram. And the third reason is because I'm not very good at it. And I want to be good at it. And you got to be willing to be shit at something before you get good at something. So I'm going to keep posting, and if I get 1% better every day, every week, if I look back in a year, it'll be massive growth, hopefully. So one day I'll be looking back at this, half decent on camera, hopefully, and yeah, thank myself for it. So start doing the shit that scares you.
What's your thoughts watching that back, brother? 3.5 years ago.
I remember how scared I was to create that piece of content. And I was walking back and forth along that walkway for about an hour. And it took about 30 attempts to film a 45-second video. And I remember how proud I was of myself afterwards as well, that I did that. And how much I felt I up-leveled so much. I've never felt such an up-level in myself since, like, if I talk on stage, that's like, whoa, I feel a new, like, identity within me. And then but back when I created that video, it was like, holy shit, this is a whole new identity. Like, I just spoke on camera. Like, that is such a big thing. There's so much fear of people talking into that little black hole on their phone, of like that void, and so much judgment comes up, and it can bring up a lot of things for people. And watching that back, I'm just so proud that I actually took that first step. And yeah, just trusted the process from there. It's literally been step by step since that moment of fucking up, making mistakes, improving from it, learning, meeting the right people, keep going, self-doubt, overcoming that, just never ending. And brick by brick, it's cool 3 years later watching that back.
1% every day, brother. And it just shows, like if you just start taking the action, eventually it becomes something that becomes the new normal. We don't have to be stuck in the fears of things and let things weigh over us or seem daunting. But instead, you had something that you really wanted to push into, and you started to take the steps into it, whether it was scary or not, whether the beliefs were there or not. You took that action, and then you probably watch your videos now, and it's not even comparable to one of your first videos.
Yeah, it's wild. I remember the voices in my head screaming, like the people I knew, like talking, like I was judging myself so much through the voices of the people I knew from maybe like back home where I grew up, while I was trying to film it. So I was like trying to think of words while I have this other narrative in my head of like telling me how crap I am at recording on video and talking on camera. Yeah, so overcoming that resistance to create and being willing to be shit at the start. And there's a concept called cringe mountain, where you have to overcome cringe mountain in order to achieve anything great in life, especially in this content creation space. Like your first podcast wouldn't have been great. My first video was fucking awful, but it's like, are you willing to climb cringe mountain and be bad at something so you can actually be good at something? Because from like creating that first video where I couldn't even talk on camera to now 3 years later, reaching over 150 million people, like it literally was step by step. And I'm just so proud that I actually started.
100%. And like, especially that cringe mountain thing too. One concept I have for life is that when I look back, the reason this concept came up, because I had a friend say to me about a year ago, he goes, when I look back at my past, I cringe, and like it used to weigh on them. And I said, that's a fucking good thing. If you're cringing at your past, it shows you've grown from that person. Instead, that should be something you're proud of. Like just that little perspective shift can create so much change.
Yeah, bro. I say that to everyone. It's like, if you're not embarrassed of your past self, you haven't grown. I look at videos from 6 months ago. I'm like, oh God, that's a bit cringy. I look at business, like landing pages and business ideas and stuff from 6 months ago, and I thought it was the best thing ever at the time. Like this is the best. It can't fail. And then it failed. I was like, why the hell did it fail? But now looking back 6 months or a year, I'm like, fucking hell, how did that, like, why did I think that would ever succeed, So it's like, I wonder what me 6 months or a year from now will think of like what I'm doing now. Yeah, I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, because like my first ever podcast, what I did was it was like the most stupidest thing ever. Like it's probably not listenable, but I've left it on every single platform because it shows a way of growth. But I hate it being there because when someone finds my podcast, they always go to the start. And what I did for my first ever episode, I got one microphone, placed it about a foot or two away from me on a table in the middle of Brisbane City Library. So there's hundreds of people talking in the background while I'm mumbling and stuttering and trying to think of words to say. And it is horrible. So If you're listening to this, don't go back to my first one if you're looking for good content. Skip ahead.
I love that. Like, I remember listening to Diary of a CEO when he first started, and it was just solo episodes, and it was him, and he'd be flying to LA, and he'd be in the hotel room at 3 o'clock in the morning. He's just finished like a 15-hour day, and he's talking about the reality of what's going on in his life. And it was like a 20-minute episode, terrible audio, no storyline, just free flow out of his mouth of what's going on in his life. And then people think their life is normal, but it's not until you actually share it then people get a insight of that. Because even now, I'm like, okay, I want to record my day-to-day life, but then I'm just sat at my computer and I feel like this is so boring. But then me 3 years ago would have loved me being able to work from home in my beachside apartment on the Gold Coast with my beautiful girlfriend. Like,
Yeah.
but it's so normal now.
Yeah, and it's hard to like document your life when things feel normal because like, is it going to be interesting to me or other people? What do I document? But I think it just goes back to everything else that myself and yourself have done is just doing it anyway and seeing where the journey takes you.
Yeah, like doing it even if you're scared, doing it if you doubt yourself, just do it anyway. It's like you're not going to look back and be like, oh, I'm glad I didn't take action that day. It's like, nah, just step into the fear anyway. It's like
Mm.
there's been days where I feel so great in the morning and then I crash at night and I feel super depressed. Like I was having these big waves and I was like, I'm just going to keep working through it anyway. Cause like if it's raining, you might as well just keep working, and
Mm.
just enjoy the sunshine when it's there. It's like there's no point doing nothing and feeling worse about yourself when you're in a bad mood. That's my strategy anyway. I'm not sure if it's the best, but I just keep working when I don't feel good. So when I feel good, I'm so proud of myself I actually moved the ball forward.
I'm similar. Like the only way through is actually through rather than
Mm,
just waiting for the waves to stop to get in the water. I just go and
mm.
jump, get a surfboard and ride them. Like, why not? You
Yeah, bro,
know?
straight in.
And like one thing I've observed with yourself, man, let me know if I'm correct, is that you like to step into uncertainty. And I mean that because you moved to the other side of the world, even when you became single, moved to Brisbane, lived by yourself, you had no family over here, you had a minimal circle, and you had every option to go home, go back to the comfort, reset back there, but instead you stood your ground, followed your mission, found a purpose, and continued to find ways to conquer challenges that will get you closer to where you want to be in life. I just want to
Mm.
ask, like, what is the mindset behind that, and what is the belief system you have to build to get there?
I resisted change and uncertainty so much growing up. I grew up in a village of 20 people, 5 minutes down the road from a
Well,
town of 2,000 people, like the smallest place ever. And everyone just cared about making more money than the people around them, At least I did. Tying my self-worth to money, holding on to certainty. Everyone knows each other. I'm pretty well known in my small fishbowl of like my home back home. So my girlfriend at the time wanted to travel. She wanted to go to Australia. And then I was like, oh, fuck, no, no chance. Like, I'm not uprooting my life like that. But then we did end up going. And then once we got over here, my girlfriend of 7 years and we broke up and just heading. I remember landing in Brisbane. I didn't know anyone in Australia. Like all my family and friends the other side of the world. The only person I knew was my ex-girlfriend now. And I didn't even have her. So I landed in Brisbane, not knowing anyone, like this complete uncertainty, literally square one in my life. It's just me, my backpack, didn't know anyone in Brisbane. And this was only 4 years ago. And I was like, what do I do from here? And it was the most scary, lonely, and worst I felt in my life. But looking back, it was also the biggest inflection point in my life. It's when I actually chose myself. It's when I let go of that certainty to allow new energy to come into my life, a new opportunity. And from there, just meeting the right people and taking the right steps and day by day actually allowed me to become the person I wanted to be rather than just holding on to this certainty of the past.
mm. And where do you think that belief really first stemmed from? Like, do you remember like a certain moment where you used to like really tie yourself down to certainty to where you got to a point where you wanted to push into uncertainty? Do you remember a certain moment? Or was it a gradual build?
The biggest breakthrough personal development moment of my life was when I entered the dating scene after being in a relationship for 7 years. I was in a relationship from 16 to 23. So like my whole adult life, I'd never had to do it again. But then I was single in Brisbane at 23, this British fella, and I was like, cool, Tinder, Bumble, like all the apps. And then me actually messaging a girl. I remember having to be so pissed in order to ask a girl out on a date. And then when the date rolled around, I had to be even more pissed to actually show up for the date. So like I was so scared of that. But then over time, I drank like I kept going on dates and I drank a little bit less and a little bit less. And then me going on a date sober, I was like, holy shit, that was the biggest personal development journey I've ever been through. And it's like it all came through dating. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's true because you would learn a lot about yourself, and especially coming out of like a long-term relationship, getting back into dating is fucking so scary because like you're trying to find yourself as well as trying to find someone else. Does that make sense? And then you're trying to combine the two, and it's just like it's such a head fuck.
Yeah, bro, it's such a crazy journey. And you learn so much stepping into that uncertainty and, oh, what's going to go wrong? Have we got anything to talk about? Just stepping into that fear. And it just made me realize like I felt so good and I had so much growth through just meeting these women that I was scared to meet at the start. And then that mapped across to other areas in my life. It's like, cool, I can post content online. I can move somewhere else, like to the Gold Coast. I can do these things. I can speak on stages. I can get on podcasts. Like I can do these things. I'm just creating new evidence that I can do these things. And slowly over time, like I back myself. But there's always new levels. Or I get asked to speak on stage somewhere. I'm like, oh, fuck, that's that contraction. I'm so scared. But then I do it anyway. I do it scared. And then afterwards, I'm like, cool, that's my new capacity. I can do that now. And I'm just collecting this evidence.
When you do things scared too, you never come out the back end of it regretting that you did it. Like
Mm,
an example I could give to people that's probably relatable to a lot of people is that when you go to the gym, right? If the days that you don't feel like going and you don't go, you regret not going. But the days you don't feel like going, you go anyway and you leave. You've never left the gym saying, I wish I never went. Like every single
mm.
time, like, thank fuck I actually went to the gym. It applies to like step into uncertainty and things that will grow you, like doing public speaking, because you're at a point now in your career where you're going to be doing a lot more of that stuff. So by stepping into it, overcoming that fear, you're just building a new normal for yourself and growing yourself.
The feeling I had when I got asked to speak on stage, like, okay, you got a 20-minute talk on this subject. And it was around content. It was something I know so much about, but it's still like, oh my God, 20 minutes of me talking. But it was the exact same feeling I had that first time I spoke on camera. It's the same feeling in my body. I was like, okay, this is just like the next level of it, you know? Because I feel so competent speaking on camera now. It's like, imagine I felt that confident speaking on stage. That would be such an upgrade of me. So just like stepping into that uncertainty constantly.
What what techniques do you use like for things like that? Let's just say you have fear coming up or you have challenges like that arise and where you're going to go public speak. Is there a certain type of method that you have to really, I guess, calm your nervous system? Is there a method that you have to you can assure yourself certainty? Is there a process for yourself?
I just feel it in my gut saying, I'm gonna do this. And then my head is trying to pull me back so much. But I walk into it anyway, scared. I walk into it knowing this is gonna be fucking like uncertain. I don't know how it's gonna end. But I just force myself. I'm like, you have to do this thing. I give myself no other option. Like it's happening, the day's coming around. Oh, it's the morning of the event. Oh my God, it's an hour before the event. Oh my God, I'm here, I'm on stage. Wow, that went really well, actually. Then it's like over, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting how the mind wants to hold us back from growing and evolving. Like it really does love comfort.
Yeah, bro. Public speaking, number one fear above death, apparently.
Mm. Yeah, well, I believe that 100%. When I first started doing public speaking on stages and run events, I was absolutely shit myself. Because I remember back in school, like if the teacher ever asked me to speak in front of people, I used to always deny it and then do it on lunch break just in front of the teacher. And I still would be stuttering and sweating and doing all the things. And I can understand, why a lot of people have that fear of public speaking. But once you start doing it, you start becoming more comfortable with it. But then, like you said before, with the evidence-based type stuff, the more you do things that you're uncomfortable with, the more evidence you give yourself how capable you are of doing anything.
Yeah, it's delusion at the start and then it's evidence. It's like you just do it anyway, see what happens, you back yourself, and then you get evidence. And the whole David Goggins thing, like the cookie jar of collecting difficult experiences to show you can do things in the future, or Alex Hormozy's side of like confidence comes through evidence. So it's like just backing yourself, just doing it anyway. It's like, fuck it, why not? Whenever I'm scared, whenever I'm stressed, I just look up at the sky, see stars, and realize how insignificant we are. Just like we're a bunch of organized chimps on a spinning rock in the middle of nowhere. Nothing actually matters that much. And then I just go do the thing, and then I feel great afterwards.
Like everything that you've done that's been a challenge for you to overcome fear or stepping into that, what's the one thing that you think has grown you the most?
The one thing would be talking on camera, I think, just fully facing myself. I remember the first time I put a camera in front of me, I just froze so much. And stepping through that was probably the biggest growth thing in my life.
Yeah, I understand because it really does help. I guess it's like another way it can serve you with coaching too, because it helps you articulate your words from thoughts and translate them to be understandable as well, because you're constantly repeating thoughts in your mind and speaking them. So it
Yeah,
trains you
getting
to
it
another
all out.
sense.
Yeah, bro. It's like there's so much information and like consume so much content and information and conversations in my head. And when you speak them, it makes sense. You can almost connect the dots. Every time I talk on podcasts, I speak something out and I connect dots in my own head. I'm like, oh, that's how that works. Or when I'm on coaching calls or when I'm making content, I'm like, oh, I just realized that now. It's just dropped in because it's like quite messy in my head. And then once you speak it out, it becomes more linear and you can make sense of it a bit more. Do you find that?
Yeah, 100%. I find that as well. Just the more I have this thing, so I have on my calendar on my phone, write an essay at 7 o'clock every Friday night. I have no
Mm,
intention of what the essay is. Let's just sit down on my computer and just brain dump an essay on a certain topic. It's like I go on like random word generator or chat GPT saying, give me a keyword that has something along with inspiration. It'll spit out a keyword. And I'll just write an essay on it and then try and articulate my thoughts into that certain word. That's like a way I use it as a way to like practice talking on the podcast, because I find that the moments where I get confused on what I'm saying, it doesn't sound good listening back. So it's really listening to that feedback of myself to try and find ways to improve.
anyone listening to this, I'd recommend something similar. Just at least like talk, choose a topic, record yourself. You don't have to post it anyway. It can just be for you, but just record yourself for 5 minutes talking on a subject. Like this will be one of the biggest personal growth journeys because you watch yourself back. You're like, wow, I'm not moving my body at all. My body language is terrible. The inflections in my voice are terrible. My filler words are terrible. I get to improve on these things and it improves you so much. So it's like record yourself for 5 minutes talking on your favorite subject that you can talk on forever and just watch yourself back. You'll grow so much.
Like from observing yourself, man, I think you'll probably agree. You don't seem like the type of guy to read one book and be like, all right, I'm satisfied with the knowledge. You seem like a guy that wants more, wants to know more. You're very curious. So my question to you is, how do you continue to learn and grow? So I guess one, improve as a coach and tell people, and two, also just to expand your own knowledge and keep yourself interested.
I think at the start, especially at the start of business, I used reading books as a productive distraction. I was like, reading books is good for me overall. So I don't feel guilty reading books when I'm actually distracting myself from work. So I just read so many books. Like I'd read for an hour or two a day but avoid my work. I was like, I just need to do the work. I just need to do the thing, you know? It was a form of self-sabotage reading so much. So I was reading a book a week, just pumping books. And I was like, I know so much information. I'm not actually utilizing it in the world. So I go through seasons of I want to read stuff and then I don't want to read stuff. And I just want to have those conversations, start meeting the right people, start sharing it as content, start having the experiences. And I learn way more from that than actually reading books, you know? So it's like I go through seasons of, oh, I want to learn this stuff. And then I go through seasons of, I haven't read a book in 3 months, or I've just read an autobiography. Um, so yeah, just the real life experience. I'm sure you learn a lot through these conversations too. Hey.
Yeah, I'm 100% the same because I'm more of a kinesthetic type learner by
Mm,
doing hands-on things and also through talking to people. So a lot of my, I guess, quote unquote, wisdom in life comes from experiences and meeting people rather than reading. 'Cause I'm the same. I'll read one book every 3 or so months, just like if I become like super interested on something. And it might
mm.
not be anything to do with what I talk about on the podcast. Like the last series I listened to was The Rise and Fall of Hitler, just because I was interested about World War II.
Yeah,
Has
bro.
nothing
I
to do
got
with
Mein
podcasting.
Kampf on the bookshelf behind me, like Adolf Hitler's book. It's like so random.
But yeah, I'm similar, man. Like just getting out there. And I think just experience in life, I think is one of the biggest lessons that you can teach yourself every single day.
Yeah, you can learn about content creation, you can learn about podcasting, you can learn about dating, you can learn about all these things in books, but nothing will compare to the real life experience. I remember before I took sales calls for coaching, I read so many sales books, everything. And then I jumped on the first sales call and nothing was relevant. It was just like a person in front of me and I had to talk to them and I forgot everything I read. And I learned way more on that first sales call than I read in any book, you know? So it's like doing the actual thing will teach you so much more than actually reading.
Yeah, like because I remember that's so true. Because I remember I did this training program once. It's called TCI, so it means therapeutic crisis intervention. And I was reading the booklet for, it, and I was like, all right, I guess I know how to talk someone out of like an emergency crisis in terms of suicide or self harm. But then once we started doing the role playing, I was like, oh shit, this is a lot different from reading it and knowing it to actually applying it and working with it. But then the more I started to apply it and work with it, with the work that I do, the more I actually started to gain experience and become more wise of it rather than just
Mm.
reading it and knowing it.
Yeah, it's like everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. The whole Mike Tyson quote. And you and I were going to be fathers soon, and we can read all the books around parenting. But when it's 2 o'clock in the morning, baby screaming, you're tired, you're frustrated, maybe arguing with the missus, like that's when the real practice comes into play, not reading.
And like touching on fatherhood, I actually would love to get into this topic as well because I believe we're both first time fathers. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that I
So
know
like,
of.
what's coming up for you in this journey, man?
So around 2 years ago, Mia first fell pregnant and we weren't planning on it. And it was very early on. We were only about 6 months into us dating and we planned on having kids maybe 5 years away. And then the Mia told me she was pregnant and so much like I remember laying in bed at night, it's like 2 in the morning, I was just staring in the ceiling. I just couldn't sleep. I was feeling every single emotion at the same time. It was the most weird experience. I was just like crying, but happy and excited, but scared, and everything was coming up for me in my body. And I didn't sleep all night. Woke up in the morning, I was like, fuck, this is real. Like I gotta step up here. And there's a quote from I think Carl Jung. He said the two biggest days in your life is when you become a father and when you lose your father. And Mia told me she was pregnant, and then 2 weeks later, my dad phoned me to tell me he had terminal cancer. And my identity, like the shifting, was all over the place. I was like, oh my God, I'm like, there's no father figure in my life now. Like that ceiling's going to be gone, and I'm going to become a father with so much responsibility. So my head was in a tailspin. And then finally came around to having like the idea of having the baby and keeping this, like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're excited about it. And then maybe at like 13 weeks, found out we had a miscarriage. So went through that experience. But what that first pregnancy taught us was that we wanted to be parents way sooner than 5 years away. So we just like recovered from that stuff, went traveling for a bit, saw family, came back. And then we were actively trying for a baby. And we were like, we fell pregnant without even trying the first time. It's going to be so easy. But it's like a 9 month process actually conceiving again. And then once we did, it was just like the greatest gift. And now she's 30 weeks pregnant and we feel so ready. It feels like such good timing. I'm so excited for it. And just like the love we're experiencing between the three of us already just feels so, so special.
Mm. That's awesome to hear, man. I'm glad that your partner's healthy and things are going along well. But at the start of that journey, it was a lot of, I guess, fear coming up because of what happened previously. And I want to say sorry to hear about that as well. And also your dad.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah. But like early stages with your newborn now, like how did you overcome, I guess, any of those thoughts that may have arisen from the previous experience that you had with the miscarriage?
Yeah, that was pretty tough because experiences and places can get anchored into past, what's happened in the past. So we were going to the scans. Yeah, we are going to get our scans from the same place we had it last time. And when we walked in for our 13-week scan, where we heard about miscarriage last time, we walked into the exact same room with the exact same person. And it was just like the exact same experience. And the anxiety and fear in the body came up. And I remember the first time where the lady put the machine on Mia's stomach, and there was like a 5 second pause where nobody in the room said anything and they couldn't find the baby's heartbeat. And the next time it happened, like in the pregnancy now, they put it on the stomach and there's like a 2 second pause and my heart just dropped. I was like, oh my God, it's going to be the same thing. So there was a lot of fear in that, but then the baby was all good. And then it's been, yeah, a completely different experience, but it still brings up a lot of fear. Like every scan, we're like, oh, fuck, I hope it's okay.
Mm. Do you think this experience has also taught you as well, like how important it is to do the work on yourself? Because I guarantee for the last 4 years or so, all the work you've done yourself kind of helped you process and cope and overcome some of the certain things you've experienced as of late.
Yeah, especially for a man, like the big thing was I'm such a feeler. I'm super kinesthetic. As soon as it happens, like I cry and then I'm super emotional and all this stuff comes up right away. And then Mia is quite opposite. So she'll be super visual. She'll just go in her head. She'll just move on. And then it wasn't until like a month later she actually felt the emotions of what happened. So as a man, being able to hold your partner and have the capacity to support her and emotionally hold her was a big thing. And it built so much trust towards us. And going through that big experience brought us so much closer together. So it's like doing this work and learning the tools around relationships improved our relationship so much, built so much more trust between us. And yeah, I was just so, so thankful I had those tools rather than, yeah, I can't imagine me a few years ago before learning any of this stuff if this had happened and how much damage that would have done to the relationship. Whereas this made the relationship 10 times better, you know?
That just shows how important it is to continue to do the things that you know that really help you or help you grow or just really help you when challenges do arise. Like even for myself at the moment, like life is pretty great, but I still do my
Mm.
breath work, I still do my meditation, I still exercise, still do the ice bath, still do this like everything that I know that makes me feel good. Because then when those days do come up, I'm well more equipped to deal and cope with them.
Do you sometimes, because you've done a lot of the work and then you're having a shitty day, you feel a bit depressed, you've argued with the missus, you're feeling stressed, you're feeling low energy, a bit of, I should know better, this shouldn't come up, I've done so much already, how is this happening again? Does that come up at all for you?
Yeah, I do. It's more so of like why am I feeling like this? Like my brain gets like that split second of confusion because like
Mm,
you've done these things before. Like why are you getting caught in this cycle? And for myself, like I'm one of those type of people. Like if I feel down, I for some reason want to do more things to make myself feel more down. Like I try and punish myself for it,
listen to sad
which
music and shit.
yeah,
Yeah,
like listen
bro.
to the most depressed shit, watch Liverpool's bad highlights and stuff, and it's like, I just like yeah, but it's good when you become aware of it because once you're aware of it, you can then understand like, all right, I know what I guess my initial reaction wants to do is like, all right, what can my response be instead? But you do have
Mm.
that like split moments, but it's making sure that you get in before that becomes an actual problem.
One of the biggest things that's helped me with my mental health is a lot of humans, when you're warm, you can't imagine being cold. When you're cold, you can't imagine being warm. When you're happy, you can't imagine being sad. When you're sad, sometimes you can't imagine being happy again. But it's like the fluctuation in my days, sometimes in my weeks, where I feel on top of the world in the morning. I've had the best morning. And then I just feel like shit at night sometimes. But knowing I can zoom out and be okay with the fluctuations. And even in the relationship, we can be so, so happy. We can't imagine being disconnected and arguing, but then we argue. And it's like, can I be okay with zooming out and knowing this is just part of the journey? It's not being obsessed with what's happening in the current moment, just zooming out, seeing the ups and downs and realizing everything in the universe expands and contracts. Everything's moving. A relationship is a journey of disconnection and connection. You're a journey of feeling great, feeling bad to continue growing. So it's like being able to zoom out has helped me so much.
I love that, bro, because like feeling okay with when the shit happens in life is so important. Because even with myself, like if something bad does happen or something like that happens, like I don't get too down about it because I think, like I said before, it's like preparation for match day. The match day is, I guess, when the bad things happen. Constantly
Mm,
prepared with like doing the breath work, meditation, and all that stuff. But the one thing that's really helped me the most, I'm curious what really helps you zoom out. One thing for me is doing meditation in the way of Eckhart Tolle. So he talked about it in the book The Power of Now, where you imagine yourself sitting on a chair and watching your thoughts like a movie and not
mm,
controlling them, not telling them what to do, not attaching emotions to them, just letting them be and accepting them and being okay with them. And I found myself when I practice that consistently, like when challenges do arise in life, like I don't get so emotionally attached to it. And more so
mm.
it's just like an observation. But then it's also drawing the fine line of not being emotionally detached from too many things as well. So it's like you got to find your balance with it.
The meditation, that's something that really helped my journey. I remember coming out of that 7 year relationship, and then I moved in with a guy in Brisbane, and I was really struggling. I was like crying myself to sleep most nights. Like at night is the worst time as well. So I was like struggling every night. And then he'd been through a divorce, so he'd been through pretty tough times as well. And he went, "You should meditate." And where I'm from, if you told someone you meditated, you'd be called gay. You'd be laughed out of the room. It's like
Same.
that sort of thinking. And I was like, nah, that's like what hippies do. But then he's like, no, like meditate, try it. So I did 10 minutes. I was like, nope, didn't do anything. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. And he's like, meditate 10 minutes a day for 14 days. And then I did that and it created distance between my thoughts for the first time ever. And I was like, holy fuck. I can like question my thoughts. I can realize these thoughts aren't me. I'm not my problems. I'm not these emotions. I'm the observer. And it's like that 14-day period of meditating 10 minutes a day, like it changed everything. It stopped me being wrapped up in my thoughts.
Yeah. And also like getting caught up in those intrusive thoughts, because especially like after a relationship and when we've experienced some sort of diversity like that, we can get intrusive thoughts and start thinking of like the worst case scenarios and everything. But by
Mm.
practicing meditation and detaching and looking at things from a different perspective and a different angle, you're really starting to able to see things for what they truly are, rather than creating all these false scenarios in your head and get yourself overwhelmed.
Yeah, when I coach people in relationships, say they've had an experience in the past where she walked in, like she was with her ex, she walked into the room and saw him swiping out of apps. She didn't question it, but then she later found out that he was actually cheating on her. Now she's in a new relationship. She walks into a room and her new partner's swiping out of apps. She has a big trigger. That must mean he's cheating on me. That must mean XYZ. And she makes it mean all these things based on old experiences. But when you can actually regulate yourself, see what is reality here. Cool. Did he just happen to swipe out of an app when I walked in? Okay, maybe. Can I have a normal conversation with him without being super questioning or negative or assuming the worst? So it's like being able to regulate yourself in those moments causes so like it stops so much anguish.
Yeah, it's like giving yourself like just 2 seconds in that moment to like just take a deep breath, process it quickly, and then say something rather than just having like that knee-jerk reaction.
Mm. Do you know the old saying like nothing good happens after midnight when you go in on nights out? It's like nothing good happens when you're emotionally heightened like that. Like when
Yeah,
you're
I've retired.
yeah, when you're in the worst states, like nothing good's gonna come from that. You're just gonna dig a bigger hole, you know? But you know when you if you're arguing with your missus, sometimes like you want to get another word and you want to like prove your point. You want to make her feel a little bit worse. Like this when you're feeling your worst. It's like, nah, bro, can you just stop, breathe there? Like you're just making more damage.
Yeah, and it's like you got to ask yourself too, like if I want to try and prove a point here, is that serving the relationship or is that serving my ego? I guess, you know?
Mm.
And it's
And
like,
it's
what do you really
calming
want to
that
serve?
ego. Yeah, bro, that's a challenge sometimes. Even I don't know, there'd be random points where I just like want to get the last word in, or I get a bit defensive, or I'm feeling that she's being critical, so I'm like I feel under attack. And it's like, no, this is just ego stuff playing out. We both want to feel loved. There's a need not being met somewhere. Cool. Can we just figure this out rather than arguing?
It's true because it relates to a lot of different things too. Like another one is for myself, like I can be quite competitive. So like I like to win. I find it very hard to play things for fun. So I've got a pool table at my house and my mates come and play. And I've like gotta have that like like in the chat to like just relax and enjoy playing pool with the boys instead of like trying to win. But it's like it translates to so many other areas in your life, hey.
Yeah, bro, that masculine competition. Me and a bunch of mates do sprints every Friday down the coast here. And turning up, I remember turning up the first time and I wasn't that fast because I hadn't sprinted in years. And then I was like straight into the gym, specific training for sprints, getting faster, do my hip flexibility and shit like that. Fast twitch muscle fibers. Just got obsessed because I was like, I can't lose next week. I have to win. So that healthy masculine competition, hey.
I think that's important for men too, like to have that competition to like strive and push each other because there's a lot of fun in it. Like I signed up to a new gym and it's like a hit style gym. And you can get like these bands that you put around your chest to track your heartbeat. And there's like a TV on the screen. It has a point system. So whoever comes the most and does the best workout, you get certain points on the board and you get to the top. So I signed up. I was like, get me one of those bands because my mission is now to get to the top. But like it's competitive for something that's going to grow me and like make me more healthier and actually serve a purpose. But I think as a man, having something to compete in, I think is probably one of the best things.
Oh, and that external validation, it's such a driver. Like, I don't even care. It is. Status is such a big thing. I remember being in little school. I can't remember how old I was, like 5 or 6, maybe 7. And there used to be this 50-meter running track outside, and you had to log like how many times you go around it. And then in assembly in the morning, you'd get a little certificate of how many laps you've done this week or yesterday. And I used to just be round that all the time. And I'd get the most certificates in the morning, just like that external validation. And status is such a thing. Like even that's something I had to accept in myself, like posting online. It's like I loved status. I loved attention. I love when someone comes up to me like, oh, I know you from Instagram. It's like that feels good. And I felt shame around that for a long time. Like, how dare I like how dare I value status? How dare I value external validation? But it's like if it's makes me feel good, it makes me feel good, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And as long as it's not hurting anyone, then like what's the issue with it? Because I understand what you're saying, because I've heard a lot of people say that before, like don't think too big of yourself, or a
Mm.
lot of people have that type of mindset. But like I love bigging myself up and in a good way, like because it helps me build confidence to go and do the things that I'm uncomfortable doing. Helps me go and do things that I may be fearful of doing because I found ways like we're talking about before, be a little bit delusional so I can build that confidence to go and do shit.
Yeah, especially when you grew up thinking so small of yourself, and now you get to think so big of yourself. I feel like that's such a gift.
Yeah. Literally, the sky can be the limit for anyone. Like, it doesn't hold any barrels for anyone. Like, anyone can actually go and do these things. It's just, like you said before, just start taking the steps and overcoming that fear.
Yeah, bro. And like it's so much easier when everyone around you is doing cool shit as well.
Mm.
It's like everyone wants to support you. Everyone's waiting to give you love. And a lot of people just aren't willing to put themselves out there to receive that stuff because they think it's going to be judgment. But when you actually put your true self out there, you'll get the support that's waiting for you. You'll get the love that's waiting for you. You'll get the signs of who you're not supposed to be around, who are the shitty mates. So once you put your authentic self out there, you get these signs of like who are the right people, who are the not right people.
Mm. And I know someone listening right now may be thinking, all right, all this sounds cool, but how do I find the right people? So for yourself, you lived in Australia, you lived with that guy who was divorced, I believe it was, and you only knew your ex. How did you then branch out to start finding individuals that may be aligned to your path?
So I started dating a girl in Brisbane, and then she moved down to the Gold Coast, and I was still kind of dating her. So I started doing trips down to the Gold Coast, and then I met this group called Brotherhood, and they work out every like 3 times a week in the morning. And I just met them. I heard about them, met them, and they're also positive, cheering each other on. And I was like, holy shit, this stuff exists. So it was me moving environment, looking around for things. It's easy where we are because there's so many positive communities, running clubs, yoga clubs, meditation stuff, breathwork communities. Like there's so much of that around us that it's quite easy. But it's like if I was back home where I'm from, there's nothing like that around there. So I had to move. And I recommend everyone, like if you're young and listening to this, move from where you grew up. If you just stay where you grew up, I couldn't imagine a more secluded life than that. If you don't travel, if you don't live somewhere else, even if it's a city 2 hours away, like just move from your hometown, then you can access new. You can be whoever you want to be. When I rocked up in Brisbane, nobody knew who I was. I was back in square one in my life. One thing I did think was I get to be anyone I want. Nobody knows my past. Nobody knows me as anything else except for them meeting me in this moment. So it's like when you move from where you grew up, you get to be anyone you want. So yeah, I'd recommend that.
It's like starting a new video game. You get to build your character all over again, which is a really
Yeah,
cool
bro.
thing. And it can be very exciting because I think it's so important to not get stuck in where you grew up. Even if you go and explore for 10 years and you move back because you love the place, but at least get out there and explore the world and see what's around. Because like one of the most grateful things I'm grateful for is actually being in Australia. Like
Mm.
I'm a massive proud Scouser. Like I love Liverpool, but I love living in Australia more than anything. And yeah, I think it's so important to actually see more parts of the world and do a bit of traveling.
Yeah, bro. What age did you move out here?
We moved out here when I was young, so I was 8 years old. We moved to Adelaide, lived there for 4 years. And then I moved to Queensland when I was about 11 or 12. And then I've lived in Queensland ever since. I'm now 27.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Damn, I wish I moved here a lot earlier. But yeah, they make it so difficult to stay here as well. If you yeah, come now. It's like they're trying
Yeah.
to keep everyone out of the country. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through, but it's so worth it. I got like a 12K invoice from the government for my visa stuff. I was like, fuck
Damn.
sakes. But then I was like, actually it's a small price to pay for living here for the rest of my life.
And then eventually like, build towards getting the citizenship. That's what I did, but for some reason I waited too long to get my citizenship. Like I lived in Australia for 17 years before I got it. And I started to
Mm.
think like, what if one day they want to kick me out for some reason? Like I need to make sure that I lock myself down.
Yeah, and bro, being able to zoom out on your generational line, people view progress as just in their life. Where was I against last year or the year before or 5 years ago? But when you can zoom out at your generational line, being like, fuck, I was the guy that moved to Australia and started the lineage in there. And there's gonna be
Yeah.
my great grandkids. Is like, we're Australians. Like, where did that come from? Oh, the great grandfather Charlie, he moved to Australia. Like, he's the one in the family that made that difference. And then even like any rich family you see out there, they weren't rich at one point. Ed Milet talks about this, but there was the one in the generation that stood up and made that change, and they were forever a rich family from there on. It's like you can always be the one in your family to do something different. Like if your family's always grown up in one place, never left, like you get to be the one that starts a lineage the other side of the world.
Yeah, it's like it's just making that choice and going with it and not letting your environment determine who you are or who you should be. Instead,
Mm.
it's figuring that out for yourself. And I find you do figure yourself out more and figure out that plan by going the experience in life. Like I find myself, like when I travel to Europe, when I travel to all different countries, I've learned the most about life by seeing different cultures and because it gives me more of a reflection within myself.
Especially like traveling around Thailand. I remember going traveling for the first time. I used to go on holidays as a kid to like Spain, Mallorca, Crete, places like that.
Me too.
Lanzarote, those sort of places.
Lanzarote, Fuerteventura.
Oh, bro, like every British person ever. Um, but then I went traveling to Thailand and I saw poverty for the first time, like proper poverty. And that perspective shift was crazy. Like these people begging on the street, these kids begging for food because they haven't got food to eat. And the power lines are all crossing each other and it looks dangerous. And then it smells of shit on the street and there's dead animals everywhere. I'm like, holy fuck, this is actually poverty. I've lived such a sheltered life. And then I had so much gratitude going back to the UK, back to a first world country, of how wealthy we are in that country. But I never realized that when I was back there. It's like the fish doesn't notice the water it swims in until it gets out of the water. It's like, oh, wow, there's water there, you know?
100%. It's just all about the perspective, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's so good going to those countries and realizing where you are. You need other people to compare yourself against, right? Like you need to know where you're at. Your brain's trying to figure out, like, right, where am I at? And imagine no one else existed. You'd have no idea where you're at, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Because I remember I went to Vanuatu earlier this year, and the guy drove us past the prison. He's like, "Oh, that's the prison there to the right." I was like, "There's about three people in there. Like, why? These have like low crime rate." Yeah, the crime here is really low because if you end up doing something that brings embarrassment or shame to your tribe or your village, then you don't get passed on any information to survive. You're left by yourself, and you literally can't survive. So then
Wow.
like that community aspect over there and respecting people and looking after each other is so huge. And that brought something back within me, like especially now about to become a dad. Like that's the culture I want to create in my own home, like community and looking after each other, respecting each other and being there for each other and doing things like that to really benefit and help each other.
Especially being away from your home, like being the other side of the world where maybe your parents the other side of the world, your aunties, your uncles, all your mates you grew up with. It's like you lose that community, but it's like, can you build another community over here? And right now, us bringing a child into the world, we feel so secure in that because the baby's got so many aunties and uncles, you know? Like everyone around us is so positive and so excited, and their language is great, and their beliefs and their energy feels so great that I'm so excited to bring a child into this environment. So it's like, can you develop your own community where you are?
Yes, because like when you move to a new country, like you end up creating your own family with people that you meet because
Mm.
like both our families are on the other side of the world. So it's really cool that you're able to really kind of get people together, create your own little community, your own little tribe, and then you get to grow all your own little children's in that tribe.
But you got to put yourself out there, hey.
Yeah, you
I was
gotta,
like,
you gotta.
yeah, bro. I remember being in Brisbane and the only people I knew were the people I worked with. Like I was working installing solar on roofs and I only knew tradies. So I only did what tradies did. I went on the week out on the weekend, did coke, like slept around with women, got pissed and hated work, you know? That's all I did. But then actually meeting the right people and putting myself out there and actually making different friends opened me up so much. But I was like, how do you do this? Like, I've never had to go out and make friends, you know? You go to
Yeah.
school, you're forced together in this social situation, you start playing football together, you start doing these social things. It's like you're forced together. It's not hard. You don't, the environment's already there for you to make friends. But when you're the other side of the world, it's like, cool, I've got to learn this making friends thing. And that can be such an ego thing. It's like, I've always had friends, but now I don't have friends and I have to put myself out there and go like friend dating. And this feels so weird, you know?
It can feel so awkward to begin with because, like, I'll speak about how I met some of the people that are mutual friends of ours, like Travi, Toddy, and all those boys. So about 4 years ago, Cool to Be Conscious did one of their first ever breathwork meditations up in Sunny Coast. I remember mate at the time, Harry Val, who's from Brabi as well, messaged me on Instagram saying, "Oh, I'm going to this thing this weekend. You want to come?" And I was like, "Breathwork meditation, why would I do that?" Like I was similar to you with that mindset. Like that's gay. You know what I mean? Like I had a
Yeah.
very close mindset for was woo woo. I thought, you know what? Fuck it, what have I got to lose? Went to that, did the breathwork, did the meditation, got massive benefits out of it. And then I met Trav that day, met Tolly that day. And then ever since then, like last 4 years, we've done a lot of things together. And like it's just been a great relationship between us. But I've never stood out of my comfort zone and got into a awkward social environment for myself at that time, like I probably wouldn't be in a lot of places I've been at today.
And it's putting yourself in those situations, like the social anxiety people get for turning up to events where it feels a bit weird. Um, it is scary at the start. And once you do it, you practice it, you become comfortable in that environment. I remember living in Brisbane where I was scared of everything. I was scared of dating, scared of putting myself on camera, I was scared of talking to strangers. Two things I did. Number one was I had to talk to five strangers every single day. And all I did was go up to them, excuse me, have you got the time? Yeah, thank you, and walk away. And that was so scary. I did that every single day, like five a day, every single day. And I became so good at that. And then I had to force myself to do one thing a week that scared me, like an event. So I used to go to like public speaking events or salsa dancing when I was this like insecure little boy in Brisbane, not knowing what I was doing with my life. Um, but that shit scared me so much, but it was also the times I grew the most too.
Mm. And it's like you gotta do it, man. You gotta do it. Because like after that, for like the next year or two, I made a commitment to myself, similar to you. I was like, I've got to go to all these events. I'm not hitting up people to come with me. Not because I didn't want the people around me to grow and learn. It's more so of like I need to be in environments where I don't have a safety net to fall back on. Like I need to just be there and I've got no one to fall back on, no safety, just get uncomfortable and just experience what's about to come. But then, by doing that, it grows you so much and evolves you so much.
You see so many people go to events and they go with their missus or they go with their mate and they just go there and they just talk to them in their own little circle. Or you see Brazilians come out to Australia and move here and all their friends are just Brazilians and they don't speak to any Australians, you know? They probably don't even know English because they're just speaking Portuguese with each other. It's like, can you go to events alone to actually put yourself in that opportunity? Like people go traveling alone and some people are like, that sounds so lonely. That sounds so scary. But it's like, no, that forces you to actually make friends along the way too.
Yeah, definitely. So I remember like when a few years ago, it's like this is ages ago, but I started taking myself out for like lunch dates. And at the time, like I thought going to lunch by myself was the weirdest thing, like just sitting in a cafe and eating lunch. I was like, what am I doing? And like literally, I used to think people were watching me and judging me. But now I prefer I usually prefer to do it. I prefer to do it with my wife, but I'm not with my wife. Like I love just taking myself out and having that time to myself. But I guess, you wouldn't have learned these things about yourself if you don't get uncomfortable. Eh?
Being comfortable lonely was one of the biggest experiences for me. Because like if you're in a relationship for 7 years and you're around your family and you're around all your mates you grew up with, there's so many people around you. But then in Brisbane, I didn't have my partner I was with for so long. It's like that used to be my like when you're in a relationship that long, they stop becoming like a partner and they start becoming like your best friend. And when you break up, it's never fuck, I miss the wild hot sex. It's I miss that friendship. That's the biggest thing you miss. And that season of loneliness was when it forced me to become happy on my own and forced me to become happy in my own company. I
Yeah.
remember trying to meditate for the first time and I couldn't sit there for 20 seconds before needing to check my phone, needing to do something, needing to move, telling myself I was uncomfortable, where I just hated being in my own company. I hated being in my own thoughts. I always had to distract myself from that. And if I'm always running away from my own thoughts, I'm always distracting myself. So it's like, can I actually be happy on my own? And that was one of the biggest breakthroughs as well.
Yeah, well, especially in today's day and age too, because like if we're not around like people in a physical sense, I guess we are around people in like a digital sense as well. Like we've
Mm,
constantly got things distracting us and for us to engage in that we don't really give ourselves any time in solitude. And I think especially us as men, being in solitude is probably one of the most important things where we give ourselves time to process our thoughts, maybe think things through and understand things and really start looking at things. I think men sitting in solitude is so important. And I think in today's day and age, we're getting less and less of that because we have more physical and digital distractions.
mm. Things like Vision Quest, where men go out for 48 hours on their own and just sit in the woods with no phone, no stimulation. They're just there. And so much comes out. I remember doing a 24-hour one. And the first 2 hours, like, yeah, this is going to be so sick. And then from hour two to about eight, I was like, fuck, this is boring. And then from eight to 12, I was like, oh my God, how much longer? And then after 12, I was like, okay, I'm getting closer to the end. Then I was like, I'm not even enjoying this experience. I'm just waiting for it to be over. Then from like 13 onwards, I was like, okay, let's actually enjoy this. And then it was so much peace from that moment. But it took about 13 hours for me to actually relax and enjoy myself and actually enjoy the experience rather than complaining it was happening or waiting it for it to be over.
battling that resistance.
So much. Even meditation is just battling. Like the first 3 to 5 minutes is just settling into it, and then you start meditating.
Yeah, and it's like that even if you start doing it for years as well. Like it's just finding ways to observe and detach. And I was actually having this conversation with a friend of mine the other day. And I was like, I wonder what people did in their spare time like 1,000 years ago. Because now, like in moments in between, we pull out a phone or pull out an iPad or we chuck on Netflix or we do whatever. But I was like, do people just stare in the sky and think? And I was like, can you imagine how freeing that would be if we had more time to do that? I know we all have time to do it, but if we actually implemented it.
And you walk into a shop and everyone's waiting in line and everyone's on their phone. Nobody's talking to each other. You walk past the bus stop. There's three people there and they're all on their phone. I remember how sad it was. I went on a train and there was about 20, 14-year-olds, say, coming out of school that time. And they were all just sat on the floor, hunched over on social media. No one was talking to each other. I was like, fuck, that is really sad.
Mm.
So consciously making the effort to put my phone away in places, going to the gym without earphones. So I actually speak to people. And when I do that, sometimes I rock up to the gym and my earphones die just as I put them on. And I'm like, oh, fuck sakes. But then now I make it mean there's someone there I need to talk to. There's someone there. Like this has happened for a reason. And I've had the coolest conversations. I remember speaking to the guy who owns Muscle Nation, like a massive business, just having a casual chat with him, talking to Will Sparks, talking to these like big entrepreneur guys. And it's like that happened because my earphones died. It's like imagine how much more opportunities I'd get if I put my devices away more often.
Mm. Did I hear you on the podcast? I think this is years ago. I think it might have been you, but it might have not been you. But were you on a train at some point and you spoke to someone on a train, or am I thinking of someone else?
Yeah, it was me. I was on the train up from visiting the girl that moved to the Gold Coast. I was on the train back to Brisbane and I was like, right, I'm going to speak to someone today. I have to speak to a stranger. And then I heard this big 6'3" dude with a South African accent. I was like, all right, I guess I'm talking to him. And then I happened to sit next to him as well. And then just started talking to him. And he's an incredible guy who I'm still really, really good friends with 3 years later. His name's Marius van den Eest, and he used to play rugby for South Africa. He
Well,
played rugby for South Africa, then broke his back, recovered from that, did an Ironman, got cancer, recovered from that, and done about 10 Ironmans since then. He wrote a book, he's done all his public speaking stuff. And just like meeting him back then, like having that one conversation and having such a close friendship with him and his sons as well, like it's amazing.
yeah, well, but just by the power of connection with other people.
Just by choosing, okay, I'm going to talk to a stranger and not go on my phone during this journey. And we spoke the whole way up to Brisbane, like an hour and a half.
Yeah, well, because like I had a similar experience. I was running an event, and one of the activities I got everyone to do was like we got notes, and one of the notes was like your favorite quote. The second one is write a letter, like a mini letter to yourself that you needed at one point in your life. I forgot what the third one is, but it was all around the same type of thing. And I said, all right, these three different notes, we're gonna walk around and hand them to a stranger, one person each. And then I was like, all right, now I've got to like lead the way and do it as well. So I did it. Anyway, I wrote a note about what my younger self needed to hear. And I was walking around, I saw this one guy, Sonny's on beard, like he looked like one of the most unapproachable dudes I've seen. Like at the moment, I was judging them. I was like, fuck, this guy looks very intimidating. I was like, all right, I need to go up to him and just break that barrier. So I walked up to him. I'm like, hey man, how you doing? I've got a note I want to pass to you. And I remember he didn't even put his hand out. He just put his sunnies down like this and just like death stared me for like 5 seconds. So I was like, oh shit. There we go. And he took off his sunnies. He's like, why are you doing this? And I was like, oh, I'm running an event. This is what we're doing. It's an activity. And he ends up opening the note and he's like, you wouldn't believe this. I was like, wouldn't believe what? And he goes, see those group of guys over there? There's about 10 of them. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, we literally got in the car at Bundaberg. We're from a church in Bundaberg. And we wanted to drive all the way down the highway until God told us to pull off the highway and then till God gives us a calling to stop at a random park. And he goes, we followed the highway for 12 hours or whatever it was. We got off at Moffat Beach in Caloundra. He said, you're the first person I've seen and you're doing this act of kindness. And he's like, I feel God is here with us now. And
Wow.
that was before I started to explore God in my life. And now I am a Christian. But like I feel like that moment happened for a reason because it like presented God into my life. But if if I never approached that dude, even though a bit of me was fearful because he looked intimidating, like I never would have had that engagement. I may not have opened up these further doors that I've once now have experienced.
That's so beautiful, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had shivers hearing that. And you hear these things like my partner and I go to church every Sunday, and you hear these things that are happening, the healings and these incredible prayer requests and stuff. And it's like these things happen for a reason, the people you meet and the activities. And it's like, if I didn't meet that person, I never would have gone to that room. And that's where I met that person. And then this happened, and now I'm here. It's like the divine timing of everything. It's like this shit isn't a coincidence.
100%. So do you go to church every Sunday, do you?
Yeah, Mira and I go to church. Bro, growing up in the UK, I remember going to church, but it was like a forced thing when you're a little kid. And used to go and there'd be in the chapel, and then there'd be a guy reading a scripture, like an old guy, super boring. If you made noise, he'd be like, shh.
Yeah.
And then you go to church here. I go to Glow Church on the Gold Coast. It's like a fucking rock concert. It's like a personal
Legit.
development event. Yeah. I remember my partner, no, a friend of mine asked for my partner and I to go. And I had a bit of judgment. I was like, oh, church is so boring. And he's like, no, no, come try it. I was like, all right, I'll come. And then it was like the best experience, and I had so much positive energy running through me. And then like exploring religion way more after that is cool.
Yeah, it's funny to see like the bit of the culture difference between churches back home in United Kingdom and Australia because, but like, because I didn't grow up like religious or believed in God, like it wasn't just in the family. But then once I started to feel more of a calling for it, I remember I jumped on my phone. I was actually sitting in this room. I just typed in churches near me, found a local church with good reviews, gave them a ring. And I was like, "Oh, do you guys do like services and stuff?" And he's like, "Yeah, we do a service every Sunday at 9:30." I was like, "Do I have to wear a suit?" And he's like, if you wear a suit, you probably stand out. So don't wear one. So I just rocked up in shirt and shorts. And then once I got there, like you said, it was like a party, like a rock party. And it's, yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, I remember rocking up, and the guy speaking was this young dude. Maybe he was like 28, 30, and he was super trendy, and he was wearing Nike trainers, skinny jeans, and a nice fitted top. I was like, this is weird. Like young people being into church. And then you go to the evening service, and there's like, it's just full of young people. And it's like such a different atmosphere.
Yeah, it's beautiful to see. Eh?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I wanted to bring up was it popped into my head as you were speaking previously. It's the idea of pedestaling. It's like when you meet people and you believe they're above you, some sense, and you just pop them on a pedestal and put yourself in a pit. I used to do that so much. And I remember back at the start of my journey, I wanted to start creating content. And there was this guy who had 11,000 followers on Instagram, and he had a podcast. And I was like, holy fuck, he's made it. Like, he's this big time dude. And I reached out to him on Instagram, and he replied to me. And I couldn't believe it. I was like starstruck. I was shell shocked. I was like, I can't believe he's replying to me. Oh my God. Then I like reached out to him again a few weeks later, and he replied again. I was like, oh my God, I'm building a connection with this guy with 11,000 followers, and how much I pedestaled him. But then now I look up to people with like 500,000 followers or whatever. And I'm like, holy fuck, I'm pedestaling them. But I know I'll just keep doing that all the way up because people message me like, I can't believe you responded. I've got like 80,000 followers. And like, it doesn't mean shit. And now you're here, you just realize like that doesn't mean anything. And like when you pedestal people, I don't know, it just creates so much separation when you realize there's like everyone puts their trousers on the same way. Everyone takes a shit, everyone has to go to sleep at night. It's like everyone
Yeah.
is the same to some level.
Like we all brush our teeth, we all do the same things. But yeah, I get it, man. Like for sometimes when I reach out to people to come on the podcast and they actually, especially some people that are like I'm a big fan of, and they actually reply and say yes. Like I look around like fuck.
Like, who am
Really?
I?
Yeah. But then it's like, oh well, they're a person too. And like, like and it's just like connecting with them. Then when you get on the podcast with them, like an example was I had a comedian called Morgan J come on the podcast, and he's one of my
Yeah, I love
favorite
him.
comedians. And I remember before I was just like I was nervous. I was like, fuck, like I feel like I really need to show up to my best version of myself and blah, blah, blah. And within 5 minutes into the conversation, we're just chatting like me and you. And I was like, it just shows like you shouldn't be nervous for things like this. And also, I probably should have flipped it to I'm excited, not nervous. But you start to realize the more you connect with people and the more you start reaching these people, you start to realize we're all the same.
And I found the idea Mark Manson brings up of identity lags reality by a couple of years, especially if you're growing fast. And these people like Morgan J, he's only recently blown up. So his reality is very different from his identity. Like his identity might be that guy who plays for 20 people and tries to make someone laugh. But his reality is this like massive guy on social media and big comedian. Like he's really out there. But it's like that identity difference is massive. And even for myself, it's like when I blew up on socials, my nervous system was like all over the place. I was like, oh fuck, I'm this guy and I've got this platform now and people know me. But I'm just that little boy from a village of 20 people back home, you know? Like it was so weird that difference.
What was it like with when you started to get a big following with, I guess, expectations of, I guess, providing value or maybe making a mistake, or like did any of those, I guess, beliefs or thoughts come up when you started to blow up and get more followers? Just knowing that you have more eyes on you.
Yeah, just the level of being seen to a whole nother level. Like I remember getting it's like 150 million views in just over 3 months. And the level of you're seen from all angles, you've got this pedestal, people look at you a different way now. And I was just like, I'm not that person. My nervous system hasn't caught up yet. And that was a big reality check for me. It's like, holy fuck, I'm this person. I've got this status from the outside. People look at me differently now. And it was such a weird thing for me.
I can imagine, especially 150 million. That's five Australian populations.
Yeah, it was wild. But yeah, I did a talk on this. I was like, there's only 25 million people in Australia. There's like 150 million people. It was crazy. Like the power your mobile phone has once you start making content is crazy.
Does that, like, I guess, motivate you now more to, I guess, I wouldn't say you haven't done this before, but you just want to go harder into your mission and provide more value because there's more eyes on you, which then obviously means that more people want to learn and understand about relationships and about your mission.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm happy to be here. Like I'd never thought I'd be here. Why not see how much further I can go, you know? It's like I never thought I'd be here. And the thing with social media growth, I'll just touch on this. It's like I always thought it'd be like a gradual creep up. You see these people with 100,000 followers, 200,000 followers, but it's not that whatsoever. I took 2.5 years of posting every single day to reach 6,000 followers. And then 60 days later, I had 70,000 followers. And it's just like this inflection point it hits, and this momentum's building under the surface, even though it doesn't show in physical numbers. The momentum's building, and then you hit something, you hit that piece of gold, and then you blow up. So it's
Yeah.
like finding that inflection point is a huge thing.
100% because it relates to this quote that I shared last night, and we'll probably finish around this subject as well, just to be wary of time. But they said it takes years, then it happens all at once. Years of silence, years of darkness, years of running full throttle, speed, bleeding out your soul on the road that never seems to end. You fail, you shrink, you do the best you can, but get nothing back until one day, one moment, one piece of work changes everything. The road ends, the silence ends, and you wake up on a roller coaster going straight towards the pinnacle. You get what you wanted, and the years of nothingness make everything so much greater. And your only regret is that you should have wanted so much more.
Wow, that's so true. It's like the amount of pain and suffering you go through and the uncertainty and the doubt in yourself constantly, but you go anyway. I remember posting videos and they'd get like 50 views and it took me 2 hours to make. I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm just going to keep doing it. Then the next day, maybe got like 60 views. Then one got over 100 views. Holy shit, I got over 100 views on a reel. I remember celebrating that shit. And then I got over 1,000. I thought I was viral. But the shit was still taking me like an hour or two to make. And then I just kept going and this delusion of just keeping going anyway. And then it just becomes way easier down the road.
100%. But Charlie, thanks for coming on the potty, brother. I appreciate your time. And I also want to give you the stage at the moment to maybe share a message you want to share, or maybe it's to share a piece of work that you got coming along, or maybe it's your socials, whatever it is, I'll leave it up to you. But the stage is yours, man.
Yeah, I'd say you have no idea what's possible once you start stepping into the fear and you feel it in your gut. You feel a little voice in your head telling you what to do. And if you tune in and if you give yourself solitude, you'll be able to hear that. And then it's just trusting that, learning to trust it, stepping into fear. And then you have no idea what's possible on the other side of it, no matter where you're starting from. So it's like whenever you feel the fear, that's a sign for where to go, not when to stop.
Well said, brother. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, Charlie, thank you.
Thank you, bro.